what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Foot Candle Films. Film news and reviews from two guys who really like movies.
This episode is brought to you by the Foot Candle Film Society. For a schedule of upcoming screenings and membership information, visit the Society's website at www.footcandle.org.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. My name is Alan Jackson. With me, as always, Chris Fry, we of the Foot Candle Film Society and the annual Foot Candle Film Festival. Chris, how's it going?
Going well. Last night, I submitted my North Carolina Film Critics Association nomination ballot. So I'd gotten enough of my movie watching homework done. So I feel good, and we'll see what ends up like getting nominated and we vote on. But yeah, it was like a big task that I've been working on. You've been working on for a while with all the screeners that have been coming in. It's year end. The two films that we're going to talk about today, you and I both watched prior to voting. So
yeah, I'm going to say one or both of these films. I'm going to leave it up to for chance.
Okay.
Were listed on my nomination ballot.
Okay.
I'm not saying if it's both because that'll spoil my take on both films.
Sure.
But at least saying at least one, maybe two
Okay.
of these are on my ballot. Okay. So Chris just teased it right away. We have two films we're going to be reviewing in the episode today. First up, we'll be reviewing the film Nosferatu, which is the latest vampire horror film from director and writer Robert Eggers, he of The Lighthouse and The Witch fame. And also he did The Northman, I believe was his last film he did. So this will be his take on the classic vampire story of Nosferatu, starring Lily Rose Depp and Nicholas Hoult, as well as Bill Skarsgård as the aforementioned titular character. So we're going to be reviewing that film, and then we're also going to be reviewing the film A Different Man, which is starring Sebastian Stan. That one we'll be discussing a little bit later. It came out a little bit earlier in the year, but we hadn't had a chance to really catch up with it and talk about it. It is available online for rental, so we thought it'd be a good time to catch up on that and kind of review that, because that film may also be getting some buzz here at the end of the year.
And it won some awards at the Gotham Awards.
Sure. Yes. There's so many award shows, right, Chris. It's like every day I'm like getting an announcement of some awards that films were given. So sure. Yes, I don't doubt it.
And you'll get a chance, like Alan said, if you like what you hear about A Different Man, you can watch this now. Nosferatu will be coming out wide release Christmas Day. So that one you will have to wait a little bit.
Yeah, open your presents Christmas morning, gather the family and the kids in the station wagon, and you go to the movie theater to see Nosferatu. It's all perfect.
Sure.
That's great.
That recommendation came from Alan.
That's it. That was my Christmas Day recommendation, yes. And then after we finish those two reviews, we are just going to hit a little bit of news talk. We're kind of building all up to Academy Award nominations. They have whittled down the list of some categories to what they call the short list, meaning we now know the candidates for nominations for the awards. So it's one step closer to who's actually the 5 nominations.
So we now have a new set of homework.
Yeah, we got to deal with the short list that help us predict the nominations, and then the nominations help us determine a winner. Okay.
Gotcha.
Yes, another step, but we're still going to bat a couple notes about those short list announcements that came out just yesterday. Figure that was a good timely thing to talk about.
Sure.
But we have 2 reviews to get into. My voice is a little shot. I don't know if you can tell. Sorry if I sound a little weird. Bad sickness over the weekend, and as per my voice is it receives the blunt of it for the days afterwards, unfortunately. And hopefully I won't be coughing up a lung in the middle of the show. Try not to. But let's go ahead and get right into our reviews. We're going to do the first film review, which is Nosferatu.
Come to me. Come to me. Hear my call. Come to me. Professor, my dreams grow darker. Does evil come from within us? Or from and beyond.
As Alan mentioned in the intro, Nosferatu makes for Robert Eggers' fourth feature film. He does tend to seem to like to do period type pieces, Northman, Lighthouse, in which all those were, period type pieces. With Nosferatu, no exception. He kind of goes back in time and does this classic vampire tale. He does take inspiration from Bram Stoker, but then also does do some of his own, actually pretty much, I guess, the Francis Ford Coppola version, the Werner Herzog version of Nosferatu. He kind of like seemingly takes a little bit of bits and pieces of little things that he liked or maybe inspired him from those films. And he's made Nosferatu, which, it's about a woman who is being sought after by a vampire, and she has this kind of weird relationship being obsessed with the vampire in a way. Lily Rose Depp plays the beautiful young woman. Here, she is known as Ellen Hutter. That's her, because, character names, like I said, kind of shifted. Nicholas Hoult plays her husband, Thomas Hutter. In this film, instead of Dracula, which is never uttered, Count Orlok is the vampire, or the Nosferatu. Bill Skarsgård plays him. Unbeknownst to me, we had Aaron Taylor Johnson, who was in the film, which I didn't realize he was going to be in the film.
Yeah, I didn't realize that either. So that was kind of a surprise when he showed up on screen. So,
and he's a friend to Nicholas Holt's Thomas Hutter character, his Friedrich Harding. And if you've seen the preview, you know that Willem Dafoe is in this as well, playing kind of a version of a Van Helsing, but not Van Helsing. He's Professor Alban Eberhard von something or other.
Well, yeah, and basically the backstory on that is this film went into production, and per studio rules now in the year 2024, if a film goes into production in any studio, Willem Dafoe has to be cast in a role in that film. So that's why he's there.
That's why he's so busy.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Okay, got you. So Alan, I mentioned some of the other versions of this tale that have been told. I know that you and your wife Suzanne are kind of fans of the whole Dracula myth, and I think you had told me once that one of your first dates you went to go see, I'm not sure which Dracula film or which vampire film. Was it Interview for the Vampire or Bram Stoker's Dracula?
We saw Bram Stoker's, the Francis Ford Coppola,
Gotcha.
Bram Stoker's Dracula, but it wasn't in theaters because we were dating after that had been out in theaters. So we were watching that on home video, but that was, one of our first,
not even DVD. It was like pop in the VHS.
I think it was a VHS tape.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice,
I mean,
nice.
this was like 95, 96, something like
Cool.
that. But yeah, that was we're big vampire fans. I love the vampire story, and I was very eagerly anticipating this film.
So kind of like when we watch Marvel movies, I'm usually more interested in your take than mine because I'm kind of over and done, and you're more versed in the Marvel cinematic or in the comic books and kind of the origin stuff. So with Nosferatu, I'm kind of interested. What's your you may have a different bar that you're expecting Robert Eggers and where he's coming from to make. So,
yeah,
what was your take for Nosferatu?
I tried to be realistic with expectations. I mean, I was excited, but I also, Robert Eggers' film, I have not seen The Northman, so I'll just be upfront about that. But between The Witch and Lighthouse, really, really liked The Witch. Really appreciated The Lighthouse, although I can't really say I enjoyed it because I'm still not quite sure I got it.
Gotcha.
So I was a little worried. I was worried that this was going to be closer to Lighthouse territory, going into a lot more just a very, very unique take on the story versus a more classically told version. I'm very happy to say I'm very pleased with the outcome. I really, really like Nosferatu.
Okay.
There are some issues. As always, I have to kind of say, yes, I had issues, but the grand scheme of things, this kind of hit the right sweet spot where it's like, yes, it's telling a classic story. It is telling it in a good narrative structure, but there's enough unique and interesting elements thrown in to make it a unique vision of the telling of this story without alienating audiences. And that was what I was concerned about.
Sure.
Actually, I think it's probably the most mainstream film, I think, of the two I've seen. It's like the most accessible, I feel like.
Yeah, and having seen The Northman, I would say yes. Of the four he's made, this was definitely the more
Which is kind of strange.
mainstream.
I wouldn't have thought a remake, his telling of Nosferatu would have been his most accessible film, to a mainstream audience. But it still had enough unique flair and touch to it that I feel like, no, that guy, I could see, yes, Robert Eggers made this movie. I'm never in doubt of that.
Sure.
But it's still never distracted from the fact that it's still a telling of a story, and all the elements were really working well for this. All the acting, the performances, the cinematography, absolutely stunning, beautiful. I love looking at this film. Mm-hmm. I could watch this film, silent film, which I guess is part of the idea. The original 1922 Nosferatu silent film. The idea that you could probably watch this without the sound on and still have a pretty good experience, because it is just a visually stimulating and interesting film.
Sure.
I will say this. As someone who is a fan of Bram Stoker's Dracula, the Francis Ford Coppola film, and knowing the story, if you're not watching this movie, about a third of the way through this movie, I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. Is this just are they just remaking Bram Stoker's Dracula? Is that the deal here? I'm not, because honestly, I wasn't as keen on the backstory of Nosferatu as a character. I mean, we've always been very focused on the telling of Dracula from the Bram Stoker novelization. So as you go through this film, there's so many plot beats and moments from like, wait a minute, this is basically the same story. What I came to figure out is Nosferatu is basically like the German telling of an original vampire story. And yes, there's a lot of similarities between how this character progresses and how the Dracula character progresses, and some of the relationships. You've got, the woman that they're kind of pining for, that is kind of the source of their desire, but yet that woman has a husband, and they kind of bring that husband to them and kind of corrupt the husband in a way. It's like, it's so much of the similar story and tell.
Sure.
So I could see some people getting confused watching it if you're very familiar with the Dracula tale. That being said, I don't hold the film at fault for that, because he's telling the story that is a classic story.
Right.
So outside of that, I think the movie was great, and I enjoyed many, many, many aspects of it. So, but I want to hear from you, someone who maybe didn't have quite the interest in this film as I did, possibly. I don't know. I'm curious to see what did you think, Chris?
I lament that I had to watch this for the first time on my laptop. I would have.
Oh no, Chris!
I would have really
sorry.
liked to see this in the theater, but I had the chance to do that Christmas Day.
Yeah.
Because but I echo everything you said. The cinematography, the production design, just the look, the sound design. Yeah, everything. Like, if you want to see like a vampire film, if you're a fan of those films, I think you're going to like this. Now, might you kind of be frustrated by some of the things, like, kind of possibly, but for me, maybe I just haven't watched one in a long time. So
right.
it was interesting. And just the way he chose to shoot certain things, I found it entertaining. One of the key things, well, there are two things. Willem Dafoe as kind of the Van Helsing, but he's not Van Helsing. He's the scientist that kind of is like, okay, here's how we're going to solve the vampire problem type guy. Yeah. His take on that character, I liked, and that was a big difference, because he's kind of played as kind of a goofball, and Willem Dafoe being a goofball, but yet the movie is it's a serious film, but he kind of provides some comic. He's about levity,
the only source of any levity,
which I wasn't expecting to get any.
Right.
So that I liked that. A surprise for me, because Lily Rose Depp. Wonder who she's related to. Her playing the main female lead character. I thought she did a really good job, and I wasn't. She obviously lives in the shadow of Johnny Depp, her dad, and she's been like in other minor roles and other things. But to see her be this character and I thought did a really, really good job.
I will comment that I think Lily Rose Depp as Ellen in this film, yes, acting. Speech, voice is great, is good, but her physical performance in this film, she she had to do a lot in this film. I'm just saying, physically speaking,
Yes.
there's a lot of body movements. There's a lot of, it's hard to describe, but just a lot of moments where it's like, oh my gosh, wow, that is pretty good what she's pulling off. And so, it was a very physical performance.
Looking kind of possessed sometimes.
Looking possessed. I think there's convulsions. There's, just all this where she pulled it off. I mean, and I thought that was pretty interesting. There are a couple shots I'm curious if there was any enhancement done,
like
because
CGI
I
type
don't
stuff.
know how in the world a human body is pulling that off, that kind of action and motion. But either way, it looked good. The performance on it was great, top to bottom. So yes, I agree. Lily Rose Depp was really good.
I'll say too, I don't recall in other Dracula films if the Count Orlok Dracula character was kind of left in the shadows as much as this one was, which I liked, the whole, I remember talking to you at one point, I can't remember if it was on the podcast or just in the hallways here, but that I hadn't seen a shot of what Bill Skarsgård as Count Orlok looked like. And in this film, it's like he's got the title of the film, but yet, and he looms over the entire film, and you do eventually. It's all
about the shadow, the silhouette.
Right, you do eventually see him, but it's like they're not trying to do some really impressive creature design or something, because a lot of times he just looks like a dude. Maybe not the most handsome dude, because he's got like a...
Let's be honest, he looks like Jim Carrey's character in those Sonic the Hedgehog movies.
Oh, okay.
Which I've not seen any of the movies. I've only seen the trailers and
millions
commercials.
of trailers.
But I do know what he looks like in there. And it's kind of how Orlok looks, right?
Okay. Yeah, fair.
It's not the look I was expecting.
No.
But I thought that was actually cool. It's like, you're focused on the silhouette and the shadow for so long. And then it's like when you you start to see him more clearly. It's like, not what I expected. Cool. I mean, it's just it worked. And
I thought that was an interesting, and that's something to me that was an interesting choice. And it was a choice that Eggers made. It's like, okay, kind of going for more of a realism type thing, but not leaving behind the horror. And it's like, so I thought that was an interesting choice. I'll wrap kind of my initial thoughts by saying, and I haven't seen a bunch of vampire movies in a long time, so I'm not sure how they compare. But for me, it struck me as being a little unique. This kind of, the ending, kind of the way the film concludes, was shifting more to like a men are idiots and women are having to kind of take control. And I was like, so that to me was also seemingly was kind of a Eggers stamp that he was putting on. And I was like, okay, cool. I liked that. So those are, I enjoyed the film. I think it's, I would like to see it again. Like I said, in the theater.
I'm very excited to see it again too. And I'll say, I think the film experienced a little bit of a pacing issue for me.
Oh, really?
In the middle section of the film, there's a point in the film where it's Nosferatu once again is not in the forefront. He's not present. You just are seeing the effects he is having on Ellen, the Lily Rose Depp, and Thomas, her husband, Nicholas Hoult character, as well as a couple other characters. Anna Harding, played by Emma Corrin, and then we also had, as you already mentioned, Aaron Taylor Johnson as Frederick. You're seeing the effects on them, and they're all being affected in different ways. Some of them are being very almost like possession type of, and it just kind of spun for a while, where it's like there was about a 20 minutes or so where it's like, okay, I get where we're going. I understand what's happening here. It just seemed to kind of dwell. But then once it got past that kind of hump in the film, all the way to the end worked really well. So it was just a minor pacing thing. I thought was maybe just a bit long and bit extended that didn't need to be kind of in that middle section. But
I guess something that may have helped me get over maybe some of the section you're talking about where you felt like things were certain kind of spinning in a way was kind of how this was a mashup of previous versions of the myth that had been told, because Simon McBurney playing Knock, who is the boss of Thomas Hutter, Nicholas Holt's character, and the way he is basically kind of a cipher for Renfield. And that, like, but just taking it so it's like, okay, this guy's his boss and he's trying to please the boss, which he has to go and do the whole real estate deal, which is in all the different tales. That's how he meets Count Orlok and everything. But the implication, how it's like to try to get ahead in the business, and then turns out, Knock is a terrible, terrible person. Like I thought that was interesting things that I guess because I wasn't aware of how it was going to be a mashup, I didn't see him quite playing the role that he ends up. He was like, oh, I get it. He is Rob Renfield Cypher. So I thought, I don't know, there was enough there that was interesting for me. That it held my
and it did. You're right on all those fronts. And I just looking at, because I want to kind of clarify my comments earlier about the comparison between Nosferatu, the story, and Bram Stoker's Dracula, and it's all starting to kind of come into play. Nosferatu was, the silent film back in 1922.
And Werner Herzog remade it.
He remade it. But
right.
The original 1922 silent vampire film.
Gotcha.
By F.W. Murnau. So that was just simply an adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Which, little inside baseball, I heard recently that the reason he changed a lot of character names was he didn't get the rights from Bram Stoker.
Right. I think that's the key. He gave them all names, different names. There's some slight differences.
They sued him. Eventually, the estate of Bram Stoker sued him, and supposedly all the copies of the film were supposed to be destroyed. Of course, we know that didn't happen, but it was like this huge thing.
So it's interesting that basically this film is a retelling of a film that was based as the adaptation of an original novel. So that's why there are a lot of similarities to the Bram Stoker drama story.
But they're also,
So that helps explain that. I think maybe going into that is helpful because I could see people going into this film who know the Bram Stoker Dracula film really well and say, why is it just the same story, the same beats, just people look different and there's different names? Right. And this is why. Okay, good. Now we got that on the clear, made that clear.
And I think having Robert Eggers, I wonder what he's going to try to do now, because it seems like this is the type of film, like he just had to wait until he had a big enough budget. He could get the kind of actors he wanted, have the film have the kind of production design on it. Because, The Witch was awesome, but you can tell how that could be made on a more independent scale.
Yeah.
And this is like so huge and sweeping that you're like, I don't see how, So I just like, where does he go from here? I'm curious. So
I am a big fan of this film. Anxious to see it again.
Will you travel to the theater to see it in the theater?
I might.
Maybe not Christmas Day.
I might. Okay. It's because I'll say too. One detriment. I mean, you were watching it on your laptop.
Yeah.
I was watching it on my home theater setup, but it was a screener copy, a digital online screener copy.
Sure.
Which I'll say, just for those to be aware, sometimes the quality level, the streaming quality of those screeners are not always the top notch.
Right.
This film has a lot of dark scenes contrasted with bright white. And if you have but low quality compression of your digital film, they will be very, very blocky and it just doesn't look great. And unfortunately, that was the case watching this. Is like I was just distracted by so many shots that it was not a fault of the film. The film is beautiful.
Sure.
I could just tell that, the compression was really tough. So for all that reason, yes, I'm actually tempted to go see it in a theater now because I want to see it visually in the full glory it's meant to be displayed in. So, yeah, I think it sounds like we're both big fans. Nicholas Hoult, didn't mention that. I thought he was really good.
He's kind of having a year.
Yeah, he's in
he's
some
not
big productions.
doing as much work, I guess, as Willem Dafoe, but he's doing a lot because he was in Juror Number 2. He was in that other film that I mentioned when we talked about Juror Number 2 that I liked better. I can't remember. It's an independent film where he plays a cop. Can't remember the name of it right now.
Something, The Order.
Yeah, The Order. Yeah. That's it. Yeah, so he's kind of having a big year.
All right, great. If you can cut that out, awesome. If you forget to cut it out, I apologize to everybody who just heard that. So, like I said, on the backswing of this thing. Okay, so that was Nosferatu. Let's go ahead and jump into our review of our second film, which is A Different Man.
Hey, man. I know you. What's your name?
Edward.
Do you work for Facebook? No, but I get this a lot.
Oh, hey, neighbor. People can be cruel, I imagine.
All unhappiness in life comes from not accepting what is. You know who taught me that? Lady Gaga.
In A Different Man, we follow the story of an aspiring actor named Edward, who undergoes a radical medical procedure to dramatically transform his appearance. And this is from the IMDb little short description, so it's nice and vague and broad, but transforms his appearance, but his new dream face quickly turns into a nightmare. This may be a little bit of an over-dramatization of that story, but yes, the basic idea of this film is Edward, played by Sebastian Stan, is an actor who has the debilitation of the face. There's a medical term for that, and I'm drawing a blank on that right now.
And I don't remember. Do they actually mention it in the film? I don't know if they actually say the true.
Do or not.
Yeah, I don't feel like they did.
But it's neurofibromatosis.
Here we go.
Okay, there we go. And that is the element on that affects his face. And we see him in his life. He is an aspiring actor, but we get the sense that he's facing challenges in his life, challenges that seem to be getting, at least in his perspective, linked to his appearance and his inability to be accepted by most of society at the time. He meets Ingrid, played by Renee Rentsev, who is a playwright and I think maybe an actress herself, but definitely writing plays and looking to produce plays. And they form a little bit of a connection, but during that course, he also realizes that there is a new procedure that's being marketed. It's a little bit of a fantastical element to it, where there's this magical procedure now that doesn't go into a lot of the science, which I think is fine. It's just saying, hey, if you take this procedure, we think your face might go back to normal over time. And it actually does. It does change his face. I hate saying the word normal, but turning it back to a society norm of what a face should look like.
Right.
And that seems great, and life's on the upswing for him. But as the little IMDb mention said, it does turn a little dark because he actually ends up meeting another fellow actor by the name of Oswald, played by Adam Pearson, who actually in real life has this condition. Mm-hmm. And he starts to question a lot about his decisions and a lot about who he is as a person. So anyway, Chris, I just gave a lot more plot description than we normally give, but this is a relatively plot-heavy film. There's a lot happening. There's a lot that needs to kind of be explained for people to understand what this film is about. All that to be said, what did you think of A Different Man? And I know you saw this a little while back, so you may have to kind of refresh your mind a little bit about it. But what did you think of the film?
I did like it a lot. Mm-hmm. I remember we had seen, we talked about the trailer in a news segment earlier. So, I heard it and I was kind of nervous. I was like, yeah, it looks like an awesome film, but I'm concerned about how they're going to handle this, because it's like they're taking something that Adam Pearson has had to, overcome in his life. He is an actor. He was in Under the Skin. So it's like something he's had to deal with, how people perceive him and look at him. And they're using that as an idea for a movie, and somebody who's cured of this. And you're just like, oh, that sounds like
it's fraught with danger.
Yes.
Is what it
just sounds like a tightrope that no one would willingly want to write and direct, which director Aaron Schamberg did. But I think they threaded the needle extremely well.
Yes.
I'll say that to me, it felt like something, and I'm drawing a blank on the guy's name, being John Malkovich.
John Cusack?
No.
Oh, no, not the actor.
Right.
In the film. Spike Jonze.
Spike Jonze, and then the guy who wrote it.
Charlie Kaufman.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. This feels like a Charlie Kaufman film.
Yeah.
To me. And I mean that in a good way.
A slight, a fairly mainstream in that,
true.
It's not
but just the idea
odd
that,
film.
But the pairing, I guess, how being John Malkovich kind of talks about the obsession of, if I was only famous, then all my problems would go away. And it's kind of long. And so in this, it's this actor who has this condition. He's like, oh, well, I'm not getting, and if that was changed, then my life would suddenly be better. And then what ends up happening is Oswald becomes involved, and he gets a role in the play that Sebastian Stan's Edward was hoping he would have. And just dynamics interacting with Ingrid as well. There's kind of like a little, not love triangle, but I guess kind of so. And it's just, all that is very interesting and just seems like something, those ideas and exploring, how we perceive ourselves, how society as a whole treats people who may look different. Mm-hmm. And they do not, the kind of some of that, the opening scene shows Edward working. He's a struggling actor, and the role that he has is working in this kind of workman's film, like a HR film that they would show
HR
people
training,
how to be compassionate to people who have this condition. And you're just like, whoa. And it's just so meta in so many levels that I was like, yeah, this feels like something Charlie Kaufman would have written or come up with.
It definitely has some elements with that, but I will say, I agree with you that it does have some of that same vibe and underlying tone to it. It is a relatively, it's not presented in a strange or a very oblique way. It's a pretty straightforward film, other than the element of there's this magical new medical procedure. That moment started to get a little absurdist. I think that's the staff at this place where the clinic where he goes to get it. I was afraid the film was going to start to go absurdist at that point, because it's like the characters are just so over the top. And it was like, don't really ask a lot of questions about this whole medical thing. Just take this shot and we'll see what happens. Who knows, Right. And I was a little fearful about the film at that point, that it was going to start to go more, and not campy, but just, absurdist is probably the best way I could think about it.
And that would be kind of mocking.
But it didn't.
I see.
No. It definitely. Chris, this film, I love this film.
Okay.
I'm going to say it too. I'm with you on this. To me, this is like the perfect fable of a movie. It's like an Aesop's fable, just with some very, very rough edges around it. It really is. I think you summed it up. It's at its core, it's a story of someone thinking the grass is greener on the other side, thinking that their issues and their problems in their life can be tied to one physical aspect of themselves, and maybe starting to realize through their experience, their choices, in their interaction with this other person that's afflicted with the same condition, that maybe that wasn't the case, and maybe there was actually something else going on with this guy that was ultimately responsible for his unhappiness or his status in life. Anyway, it's a great fable from that standpoint, I think, is that at the end of the day, it's you could really sum it up to a nice little, hey, this is what happens when people do this or people feel this way. And but it's a much deeper than just that simple fable. I think it's so well performed. Sebastian Stan.
Yes.
I think he is absolutely amazing. Adam Pearson is really, really good. I'll just say this. He's in the film a lot less than I expected. He comes in really late in the film.
True.
And his role is a very, I think, relatively small supporting role. He's very, very good.
He is.
But Sebastian Stan, we have to follow through several variations of his character.
Yes.
And he pulls them all off perfectly. He is playing his character Edward with this condition in the first part of the film, obviously using prosthetics and a mask to do that, but seemed really natural in that fit. And then you see him after the procedure, where now he has the face of Sebastian Stan. And what that means, to me, that was the most fascinating part of the film, is watching him adjust once that condition was gone, and his face is like, quote, societal norm.
Right.
And seeing him interact with people where you could still tell he's on edge, he's reserved, but yet he's like, wow, people are responding to me differently. And the way he's responding to them, I thought was just fascinating to watch. And then you start to see him spiral down a path of doubt, contempt, jealous. It's just all these emotions that he's never had to deal with before are now overtaking him. And I just thought his performance was really, really good all the way through.
Agreed.
All the acting's good, but obviously he had a lot to pull in this film, and I think he did it amazingly. So
yeah, he did. Yeah, just where his character, kind of the arc of his character during the film, and like to the different. Yeah, I've like Sebastian Stan, but this film is by far my favorite thing I've ever seen him in.
Oh, absolutely.
And his choices that he has made outside the MCU are pretty interesting. Like he played Donald Trump in The Apprentice this same year, and he's done this. He chooses interesting roles.
Well, he's set up in my mind, the perfect acting career right now. You get your big dollars, you get your easy paycheck from the Marvel movies. Sure. You've got an established character that people like in a big franchise thing that you're going to be able to do for several more films, I'm sure. But that means he can also now spend all of his non-Marvel time doing exactly the kind of interesting, challenging projects he wants to get involved with. So sure. I love that dynamic to it. The director I want to call out, Aaron Schimberg, writer and director for A Different Man. He's done a couple of other films. I'm not familiar with any of his other previous work. So Chained for Life was a film he did 5 years ago.
I'm not familiar with it, but it also stars Adam Pearson.
Okay, so Adam Pearson, so there's some connection there.
They had made one previous film, and I want to see that film.
Okay, all right. So that's a previous film he did back in 2018. He did a film before that called Go Down Death in 2013. But I'm not familiar with his work in general, and I was really impressed with the direction of the film and just its overall look and feel. It had a good feel to it. It just felt very textual, felt very real. And other than I just have to do my one little call out. I don't know what it is about 2024, Chris, where films are just wanting to gross Alan out with body horror scenes wherever they possibly can slide them in.
I mean, this is no substance.
No, the substance was nothing but body horror the entire time. The whole premise of the substance is let's make this as painful for Alan Jackson to watch as humanly possible.
I think that's in their marketing.
All right. Night Bitch had a couple scenes that were just like, ugh, that was tough to watch. This one definitely has one particular scene that was challenging and having to do with the procedure itself and all. But other than that's a little personal thing I'm going to hold against the film. Other than that, I thought everything else was great and really, really enjoyed it. Is there anything else you wanted to call out on this? Or
no, I just now that you can find it streaming, you can rent or buy it, I believe. I recommend people check it out if it sounds interesting because it is one of my favorites of the year. So. Okay,
all right. Chris has already just dropped that little nugget.
Yes.
For people who are wondering when we're going to get to our best of the year show, that'll probably be in the first full week of January or so. We're looking to do that. But Chris has already just dropped it in there.
Yeah,
we'll see. Might be popping in that list.
I have done a lot of homework, but still have more homework to do. Obviously, we're going to talk about some of the things that have been announced with the short list. So we'll see. But it's definitely in the running.
I'll go ahead and spoil it even further for me, Chris.
Okay.
Both of the films we talked about today, Nosferatu and A Different Man, are both ones that I added to my nominations list as far as what I submitted for different categories and are currently in my list of favorite films of the year. But you're right. We've still got several more that we need to watch and check into before the end of the year. So anything could change. But it's nice we had a good twofer of two films. I'm a big fan of both of these films.
So I'll say you mentioned in wrapping up my comments, you mentioned that I had seen this a while ago. True. One of the benefits, I guess, doesn't help that I have to watch things on my laptop while I use Critic Screeners. However, one benefit is I can jot down little quick notes as the film's going on, which I did for A Different Man because I didn't know if we'd end up talking about it. And I may, one of the things that people say is like, does a movie have 3 good scenes and then no bad ones or something like that? And I can't remember what movie critic or director said that, but I jotted down 3 different things about this film that that stuck out in my mind that I liked. There's a scene where there's an ambulance that comes and the lights and sounds are then juxtaposed with an ice cream truck's lights and sounds. And they're like having a problem like parking or whatever.
Yes.
And it's taking place, I guess, in New York City where that would be an issue.
That was great.
That's funny. And it's just like this random, I guess one thing I'll say, this film had some funnier moment that I was not expecting in something like this. That was one of them. It was just this odd juxtaposition of an ice cream truck with an ambulance. Then there's this bit of dialogue that Edward is having when he's frustrated that he mixes together Lee Harvey Oswald, Hinckley, and John Wilkes Booth, all like mixed together, like just name dropping things, and is corrected because he's misusing them. That I just love that bit of some of my favorite writing of the year.
That's great.
So
and
it's awesome.
I'll even call it, I mean, you talked about the humor. Yes, there is one moment in the film too that really, it's an unintentional, yes, it's a chuckle. And I love the way it was just presented on screen. We're getting to the end of the film, and I'm not going to spoil too much, but just say that Edward finds himself residing in someone's house in a certain physical condition of his own doing because of a choice he made. And but just when you cut to his where he is and now where he is living and the state he's currently in, it is this perfect reverse metaphor of like everything we've seen up until the film at this point and the character choices he's made brought to this point. And it's just the way it's just kind of shown on the screen, just kind of laid out there for you to see and absorb. I thought was really, really fun as well. I'll have to remind you about it.
Yeah, because I kind of have a hazy memory.
Yeah.
And
I will say, last thing I want to say on this film,
sure,
if it's okay. And I'll have to talk to you about this offline. I love endings that are not perfectly spelled out for you. I love endings that are left a little open. I like endings that maybe make you ponder the ending more than they do spell it out for you. This is honestly an ending, Chris. There's this ending scene in a restaurant between the three characters.
Yes.
Which is fine. The dialogue between the three is all working, making sense to me. But there is a shot. Sebastian Stan is talking with this two other characters, and then he looks over and sees someone. There's a shot of somebody else in the restaurant, and then back to Edward. And I've watched that shot 4 times now, and I don't know what it means. It's kind of killing me. I need to figure out what to pull from that.
Okay.
So I may need to talk to you about that afterwards and see if you have any thoughts, or maybe even pull it up and like see. All right, what's going on? There's got to be something here. I'm missing something, and I'm curious about that. So
last, not a funny moment, but a powerful moment in the film. Oswald does some karaoke as Edward looks on, and I thought that was a really good scene. So obviously, yes, A Different Man. I am a fan.
All right, good. Well, I'll put me down on that list as well. So 2 good movies, 2 good reviews. It's a good time to be talking films when we got films like these to review. So
absolutely.
All right, Chris, we're going to take a very, very short break. Come back. We've got some more Oscar talk. We got a little short list description. We'll kind of explain what all that means. Hit a few highlights and what's happening in that next step towards the Oscar nomination. So, and get some feedback from us on that. Stay tuned. You're listening to Foot Candle Films. We'll be right back.
This podcast is sponsored by Jackson Creative, a custom communication agency located in downtown Hickory, North Carolina, specializing in online content creation. To learn more, visit thejacksoncreative.com. Jackson Creative, we tell your story.
Welcome back to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. Chris and I had our reviews of Nosferatu and A Different Man in the first half of the show. Both very, very positive reviews, very positive recommendations on those 2 films. Chris, as we have been doing, though, the last several weeks of this show, I know we talk about the Academy Awards a lot, and it's unhealthy. It's not good. It's probably too much to be talking about it. But it is, I tell people, it's like, it is kind of our Super Bowl. I mean,
true.
Look, there's a lot of championship games going on throughout the year. There's a lot of little mini tournaments. There's a lot of other things, but the Super Bowl's the thing everybody kind of points to. In our world, that's where it is. And agree or disagree with the Academy on a year-to-year basis, agree or disagree with their selections or the ways they handle their nomination categories. All that aside, we still look to see what does this Academy ultimately deem, in their opinion, as the best films and performances of the year. And we like to explore that and see how closely those match to what we're looking for and hoping for as well. So the Academy Awards took one more step closer to their 97th Oscar ceremony coming up in late February, I believe.
Which Conan O'Brien host?
Yeah, which I think is great. I'm very excited about that. I think that'll be good. They released a short list for 10 categories. Now,
which are still pretty long.
They're still longer list. They're not as short as they're eventually going to get.
Sure.
But just so everybody's aware, the Academy puts out these short lists for various categories, not for all categories, But the short list are basically saying, okay, then now these are the films that are going to be candidates for the final 5 nominations in this category. So it's almost like whittling a list down of every film release from the year down to this list of, and these could be anywhere from 10 to 20 films listed on a short list.
Gotcha.
But it does at least, it's like the next cut. You're cutting down your roster down to the final 5. And so we know these are at least in the running still.
Gotcha.
So I want to mention a few of these. We're not going to list every film in every short list because that'll take forever.
Okay.
And honestly, a lot of these are ones I'm not familiar with because they are pulling from a pretty wide batch of films.
Sure.
But I did want to hit a couple of the categories and just kind of let us know where some films are heading and maybe some ones we've talked about if they made it into these lists at all. So first up on the documentary feature.
Okay.
The short list right now looks like there's about 18 films in the documentary feature short list.
Okay.
I will go ahead and tell you the ones that we have actually heard of, or at least there's been some talk about, or we've actually seen. You've got the film Daughters, the documentary Daughters,
okay.
That's on Netflix, made the short list.
That makes me happy because I've seen it.
Okay, good. We've seen that.
Yeah.
Have you seen Frida on Amazon?
Yes.
Okay, that one is on the short list as well. No Other Land.
Yes.
Chris, you damn.
I watch a lot of movies.
Good for you.
I don't watch any TV.
Yeah. Sugar Cane, which is a documentary that our Film Society actually screened just last week. So we've obviously both seen it. That is on the short list.
Okay.
And Will and Harper from Netflix is on the short list. I'll tell you what, I'm just going to read these out really quick.
Sure.
Chris, you tell me yes or no. Have you seen this film? Okay. The BB Files.
No.
Black Box Diaries.
No.
Dahomey.
Yes.
Okay. Eno.
No.
Hollywood Gate.
No. And I want to know what that's about.
Okay. Good. Porcelain War.
No.
Queendom.
No.
The Remarkable Life of Evelyn.
Yes. Yes. That's on
Soundtrack
Netflix.
to a Coup d'etat.
On my list, but no, I haven't seen it.
And Union.
No.
All right. So you're about 60%.
Yeah, Hollywood Gate is something that I've seen pop up, and I'm like, what is that? So I got to search that out.
That is the documentary feature short list at this point. Interestingly enough, no, not in my mind interesting, but Morgan Neville, well-renowned documentary filmmaker, Piece by Piece, not on the list.
Which
I understand.
Yeah, because it's more of a biopic as opposed to
I didn't think it was that good either.
Well, there's that. We talked about it on the show. Yeah.
So yeah, that's Morgan Neville, his documentary Through Legos of the life of Pharrell Williams was not on the list. So yeah.
That is interesting.
Was happy to see Will and Harper on there. I mean, I don't expect Will and Harper to probably make it to the final 5, but it was nice to at least see some recognition because I did think that was a good film.
Agreed.
International feature.
Okay.
Let's do the same thing. I'm just going to run these off and you tell me yes or no. Have you seen it?
Usually I'm a little bit better in this category. I think I'm going to be pretty terrible.
Oh, okay.
But let's see.
Well, let's see. Armand. That's from Norway.
Yeah.
Dahomey.
Yes.
That was also a documentary.
That's interesting. Because it's from another country. So
international can be narrative or documentary.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep. So Dahomey, you have seen. That's from Senegal.
Yes.
Amelia Perez.
Yes.
We've seen
You've
that.
seen that as well. So,
I have.
Yeah.
Flow. I know you saw that. And that's from Latvia.
And that's animated.
It's animated. Didn't make it in the... I'm sorry. We haven't gone to animated yet.
Oh, that's right. Do what? I'd be surprised.
Yeah,
okay.
Sorry. We haven't gone to animated yet. From Ground Zero.
No.
That's from Palestine.
Okay.
The Girl with the Needle.
No.
From Denmark.
Curious about that, though. Okay.
How to Make Millions Before Grandma Dies.
Also curious about it. Have not seen it.
That's from Thailand. I'm Still Here from Brazil.
Yes.
You've seen that. Kneecap. I know you've seen that. From Ireland.
On Netflix.
Yep. Santosh.
No.
From the United Kingdom.
Okay.
The Seed of the Sacred Fig.
No. And that falls into my excuse is it falls into the brutalist category. I think it's kind of long.
Yeah.
But I know of it. So,
That's a Germany's entry. Touch.
No.
We got a link to see that recently. Focus Features.
You're right.
That's Ireland's film.
Oh, got you. Okay.
Universal Language.
No.
That's an Oscilloscope Laboratories production from Canada.
Okay.
Waves It's a film from the Czech Republic.
Wow, no.
And Vermiglio from Italy.
No.
Oh, Chris has got some homework
I told you I
do.
got some homework in this category.
Yeah. So that's a lot of those interesting. I think Flow, which is animated, you've seen, did make it in. Amelia Perez, we've talked about. It's France's entry because it was produced, French director and French backing, but obviously we talked about how that was a very unique film and that mostly in Spanish,
right?
Plus it's a musical.
Yeah.
Very interesting production.
I'm curious. I would tend to think that Dahomey, if it's going to make the final 5 for either list, probably do it for documentary over international feature, but who knows?
Well, who knows? Those are the documentary ones that are in the short list.
Okay.
Some other categories. Let's not do those. Well, hold on. I'm working through a list here.
You did tell me that Harper and Will Go West made it for Best Original Song.
There's an original song category.
So I'm happy to hear that.
I was looking to see if there was an animated feature film, and I'm not seeing it. I don't think that was a short list they put out.
Okay.
They have animated short films and documentary short films and narrative short films, but not an animated feature, which is interesting. Okay, let's hit this. Original song.
Okay.
This is obviously a song written for the use in the movie, or at least, provided for original use in the film.
Right.
Looks like we've got about 16 or 17 on the short list. Most of all these we've heard of to some degree or aware of. Forbidden Road is a song from Better Man, which is not A Different Man. This is Better Man, which is the Robbie Williams biopic where he's a monkey.
Have seen it.
You've seen it.
Yes.
Okay. So you are familiar with the film Forbidden Road.
Yes.
Okay. Good deal. Winter Coat is a song from the movie Blitz.
Okay. Haven't seen Blitz. No.
You haven't seen Blitz.
No,
I've seen
have.
Blitz.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember the song, but that's fine. Compress Repress from Challengers. Yes, I'm very familiar with the song, and I love the song.
Does it have lyrics? I guess.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
It is the ending song of the film.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it is a
I definitely remember
Trent Reznor.
Atticus
Ross.
Yeah. Okay.
Never Too Late is from Elton John, Never Too Late, which I believe is a documentary about Elton John.
Okay.
But I assume it's in a song written for the documentary.
Sure.
El Mal from Amelia Perez. And then also Mi Camino from Amelia Perez. Two songs on the short list for that film.
And the El Mal, I think that's the one sung by Zoe Saldana.
I believe so.
Okay.
Yes, believe so.
Interesting.
Sick in the Head from Kneecap.
Oh, okay.
Familiar with that?
Yeah.
Good. Beyond from Moana 2.
Okay.
And then following in the Disney piece, we have also Tell Me It's You from Mufasa the Lion King, which comes
is yet to come out
this weekend.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Piece by Piece from Piece by Piece. That is the Pharrell Williams song from that documentary Lego biopic. Like a Bird from Sing Sing. I don't recall the song, but I assume it's a in-credit song.
I don't either, but yeah, I'm assuming that's where it falls. Yeah.
Okay. The Journey is from the movie The 688 on Netflix. Song Out of Oklahoma from the movie Twisters, which I think is hilarious. It's actually, I mean, look, I like the fact that they can bring some country Americana type more music into the song category here, so that's fine. Kiss the Sky from The Wild Robot, which I know you have seen that also. Yep. And then Harper and Will Go West from Will and Harper.
Right. That's the one that I would,
I mean, that's the one I would like to see do really well, just because it makes the film, it makes the film by the end. It is a perfect original song for a film. It's funny. It's heartfelt.
Sure.
It sounds good. It's got a good melody. It's got all the right elements. So we'll see.
And I've gotten on a soapbox in the past when we talk original songs. It's like, I don't want it just to be a credit song. Like I want there to be something more to it.
Right.
And this would fall into that category that it has a lot going for it.
Just one little snub, I guess. I have not seen the film yet. I believe you have. The Last Showgirl, which was the Pamela Anderson film.
Oh, yeah.
There's a Miley Cyrus song, Beautiful That Way.
And it is a good song.
Okay, well, it was not listed on the short list.
Interesting.
Yeah. And keep in mind, Lin-Manuel Miranda did the song Tell Me It's You for Mufasa, so
But he didn't do the songs for Moana too.
No, he did not.
So,
He did them for Mufasa.
Okay.
So they say he is closer to that EGOT status that he's shooting for.
Sure.
If he were to get an Oscar for that.
Right.
The other short list were all mentioned were all short films, which we don't talk enough about short films. I don't think that's going to be a really helpful list for us to go through at this point. Original score, that's probably the other category that people pay attention to on this. I'll just say really quick: Alien Romulus, Baby Girl, Beetlejuice, Blink Twice, Blitz, The Brutalist, Challengers. These are all original scores.
Gotcha.
Conclave, Amelia Perez, The Fire Inside, Gladiator 2, Horizon and American Saga Chapter 1, Inside Out 2, Nosferatu, The Room Next Door, Sing Sing, The 688, Wicked, The Wild Robot, and Young Women in the Sea. I think that's just about all the films released in 2024 are on the short list for original score for this year. So, I mean, that's such a big, long list. I really don't know where that's going to go.
There have been a lot of really interesting scores this year. I think it's going to be, for me, choosing what I think is going to be my favorite, who I think will win. I think it'll be really difficult this year because there's some heavy hitters. So.
Well, I'll go ahead and say a couple quick notes on the score. First off, a little disappointed that John Baptiste for Saturday Night not in that list. I thought that was really good.
Yeah,
thought that was a good score.
Wasn't as high on that film as you were, but yes, that particular part of it. Yeah. Okay.
According to Variety, and I don't necessarily agree with it, but two films they say kind of got left out of the score were Nickel Boys for the original score and The Substance, which I do remember. The Substance, that score did play a part in the film, but I'm not too bothered by either of those two not being an original score. I honestly don't remember the score for Nickel Boys.
Nickel Boys, I would kind of agree that, not that it was a slight, but it was an interesting one. But there again, paired with sound design, I might have trouble separating because a lot of times they did a lot of crazy stuff with sound design because of, yeah.
We're going to be reviewing next week. One of the films we'll be reviewing is the film Baby Girl, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm not going to give you any insight on my feelings on that film yet.
Okay.
I just will say it was listed on the short list for score.
Okay.
Cristobal Tapia de V was the composer of the music for Baby Girl.
Okay.
Have you seen the show The White Lotus?
Yes.
Okay. So he was also the composer for The White Lotus.
Interesting.
And thinking back on the film Baby Girl, score could be an interesting selection for that film.
Okay.
So, I'll just give you that heads up on that. Okay, well, that's kind of where we are. I mean, there's also, they announced short list for visual effects. They did it for sound.
Did Better Man make that?
For visual effects?
Yeah.
Let's see.
I'd be curious.
Better Man or A Different Man?
Better Man.
Better Man, the monkey.
Yes.
Yes, it did.
Okay, good.
All right.
Because that's the biopic of Robbie Williams where he's an animated monkey. And I mean, just the sheer volume. I mean, we never see Robbie Williams' face.
He's a monkey the whole time.
So, I just would hope that there's a recognition there.
Yeah,
so.
visual effects was Alien Romulus, Better Man, Civil War, Deadpool and Wolverine, Dune Part 2, Gladiator 2, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, Mufasa the Lion King, Twisters, and Wicked.
Okay.
Yeah. So they also announced a sound category for short list, a makeup and hairstyling. So that was the short list. That's what they kind of put out. Again, I think nominations are officially announced in mid-January.
I think
it's like January
right.
17th or something, if I remember correctly.
It's usually like a month before the Oscars.
Yeah, and the Oscars are in late February. So we have, between mid-January and mid-February, we'll have that time period. That'll be our fast and furious scurry to catch up on anything that we might have slipped up on.
Yes.
Or came up as a surprise nomination when announced.
Yeah, personal goal, I always try to have seen all the nominees, which can be a challenge sometimes with some of the short films. But it's always my personal goal. So we'll see.
So that's where we are right now with the Oscars. And So, Chris, I think a little game plan for us is we have next week we'll be doing a show with a couple of reviews.
One of which you said was going to be Baby Girl.
One is Baby Girl. What was the other one?
I think we talked about A Complete Unknown, which also comes out
Complete
Christmas
Unknown.
Day.
Complete Unknown, the Bob Dylan biopic with Mr. Timothée Chalamet. And then we'll do Baby Girl with Nicole Kidman. That'll be next week. Then I think after the Christmas break, we'll probably take a week off for the holidays.
Sure.
When we come back in the new year, first episode, it is going to be our best of 2024.
Got you.
And you and I are going to do a little differently. And before we've always just kind of both given our top 5 films and kind of left it at that. No, we're going to go a little deeper. We had to fill out some ballots. We had to do some work this year. Let's go ahead and share with everybody our categories of our favorites. We are going to do Best Picture. We're going to do Best Actor, Actress, Supporting Actor, Supporting Actress, and Director. Best Director. Not to put short change on any other category, but we got to draw the line somewhere as far as where we can.
We're not going to have a 3-hour show, so
right. But I feel like at least those categories do cover some of the bigger ones that we feel like we're more able to give some good analysis of. So we'll be doing that in our first episode in January when we come back right after the holiday break. So that'll be fun. All right, Chris, I think we're done for today. Unless you didn't have a recommendation, did you?
No. I mean,
you got too many films you're watching.
We could say Different Man, but we've reviewed that as well. So
that's okay. That's fine. Don't count on any recommendations, new recommendations until after our first of the year.
Right.
Because we've got a lot of films to review and catch up on. So, all right, Chris. Well, if anybody had any feedback for us on either of the 2 reviews we did for Nosferatu or for A Different Man, or their own thoughts on some of these Oscar categories that are getting teased out, how can they get a hold of us?
You can send an email to info@footcandle.org. You can follow us on Facebook, Foot Candle Film Society, Instagram and Threads, we're Foot Candle Film, and we're also on Blue Sky. Al and I do sometimes write reviews or do quick things over on Letterboxd. We're try to track what we're seeing, leave quick takes, so we're also on there as well. Do us a favor, if you like our show, consider giving us a star rating, write a review, share with friends on whatever service you receive your favorite podcast on, because it'll help us reach new listeners. Early warning, I guess I should say, 2025 Foot Candle Film Festival is going to be September 19th through the 28th, so it's a long ways off, but we always try to give you a heads up. We'd love to have you come join us for that. We're in the early stages. If you're a filmmaker, you can submit your film for consideration for that festival, but we hope you can attend if you like seeing interesting films.
All right. Well, that'll wrap us up for today. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We will look forward to talking to you next week as we approach the holidays here. Hope everybody's doing well, being safe, and we'll look forward to talking to you soon.
See you in the ticket line.
Watch films in the company of like-minded people in the dark. Watch films in the underground. We won't let anyone know where you are. The films that don't make it to Carmike at the mall, or ones that were famous when Grandpa would watch films out of the reverence of the heritage of an art. Watch films through the courtesy of Foot Candle Film Society.
Special thanks to Carpal Tuller for the show theme music. For more about Carpal Tuller, visit www.carpaltuller.com. You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.